Good morning. I hope that your Wednesday's off to a good start. Mine is so far. I'm glad you're taking a few minutes to spend with me on a Wednesday morning. It's sort of gray looking, not a pretty morning, but it's always good to be here. My official Coffee with the Preacher mug made by my favorite potter. So this morning I'm going to really do just like I did last week, the last couple of weeks, in fact. I have just been reflecting on, for a couple of minutes, the lectionary gospel reading for the upcoming Sunday. I mentioned, I guess, last week or week before last, that the Revised Common Lectionary that a lot of churches use to one degree or another. I sometimes preach lectionary. In fact, I will be for the next several weeks. That it divides up. There are 4 readings for every Sunday: Gospel, Epistle, Old Testament, and something from the Psalms. They're a very regular pattern, and their lectionary goes in a 3-year cycle: year A, B, and C. In years from year A, most of the gospel readings will be from Matthew. Year B from Mark. Year C, most of the readings are from Luke, and we are in year C of the Revised Common Lectionary. So with that as sort of an introduction, the lectionary for this upcoming Sunday is from Luke 12. It's 32 through 40. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give to the needy. Provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with a treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Stay dressed for action and keep your lamps burning, and be like men who are waiting for their master to come home from the wedding feast, so that they may open the door to him at once when he comes and knocks. Blessed are those servants whom the master finds awake when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will dress himself for service and have them recline at table, and he will come and serve them. If he comes in the second watch or in the third and finds him awake, blessed are those servants. But know this, that if the master of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have left his house to be broken into. You also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. First thing that strikes me about that passage is the way it is broken up is, to my mind, a little awkward. There's an awful lot that is sort of covered in that passage. Part of that is just the text itself, and then part of it, I think, is how the passage was delineated when the lectionary was put together. And we can quibble, and I sometimes do, with the way the lectionary delineates passages. It's probably not a good idea to quibble with the words that came out of Jesus' mouth, being as he is, well, the divine Son of God and ruler of the universe. So, what do we do with this? There's a lot here, and whenever you've got a passage that has a lot in it, a lot of different smaller elements, it's always hard to know which way to go. Which one of those smaller elements you want to hone in on in a Bible study or in a sermon. So what do we do with it? First, we have he that the master is left and is returning, and we could probably, certainly this is Jesus referring to himself. He's going to be leaving and he's going to be returning. And at least looking at the first couple of verses, you don't have to be a PhD biblical scholar to know that God wants his people to be generous with those who are less fortunate. That shouldn't take a PhD in biblical studies to know that. And being generous is how we store up for ourselves treasures in heaven. In showing generosity towards others, we are showing grace and compassion, which should be that's sort of expected of us. God is gracious to us, and we must be gracious to others. In being generous towards others and being generous with what we have, we are also exhibiting faith that God will provide. That God will provide for us. We're willingly giving away some of what is ours, and trusting that we're still going to have enough that God will provide. And then he refers to the servants who have their lamps trimmed and burning. Matthew has a parable of the wise and foolish bridesmaids, which refers to lamps that are trimmed. And in Matthew's parable, there is a wedding feast, and that is planned, and the bridesmaids they're waiting for the bridegroom to return, and the wise ones have provided oil for themselves, and they've got their lamps trimmed and ready to burn. The foolish ones didn't have enough. They didn't have enough oil, and so when the bridegroom returns, the wise bridesmaids, their lamps are full of oil and they're burning and they are good to go. But the foolish ones missed out because they couldn't burn their lamps. And the master returns from the wedding banquet. The master returns from the wedding banquet, and what happens for those whom he finds ready? This is remarkable. It's hard to believe it, actually. What happens for those wise servants, the ones who are ready when the master returns? The master serves them. The master serves them. Remember the first line of the passage. It is the Father's pleasure to give his children the kingdom. It is the Father's pleasure to give gifts to his children. It is God's pleasure to give gifts to his children. To give the kingdom to them. In John 13, we see Jesus washing the disciples' feet. You see Jesus washing the disciples' feet the night before he's crucified. In John's Gospel, Jesus takes off his outer cloak, takes a basin of water and a towel, and he washes the disciples' feet. And when he returns, it will be a wonderful day and a great day for his believers, his followers, because he will return and he will serve us. And again, that is hard for us to imagine. We could imagine this, that you go to, well, an analogy that happens with us all the time. My wife and I currently are working at different churches, and Both churches occasionally will have a meal or covered dish of some sort, and when that is the case, and she might bring home a plate of food, I'll bring home a plate of food for her to eat, and okay, there's some leftovers in the fridge if you want something to eat. Well, in this case, the master returns, and instead of saying there's leftover spaghetti in the fridge if you want it, he has the servants recline, and the master serves them. Wow. It really is mind-boggling to me. But it is the nature of God to be generous. It is the nature of God to be generous. It is not that Jesus will be our servant. No. But rather that Jesus, even though he is Master and Lord of all, still will love us and provide for us. One last thing that I want to mention is this. When you're reading the Gospels and you're reading through Jesus' dialogues when he's talking, it's important to pay attention to who the audience is. Who is he talking to? So when you read Luke chapter 12, the chapter begins with this big crowd of people. There are thousands of people there. So many people that, in fact, there are a few people have been trampled. It is a mob scene. And in the midst of that mob scene, Jesus is talking to, in this case, he's talking to his disciples. You've got this mob scene, and of course Jesus' disciples are right there with him. He has spoken to the crowd, and now he turns to his disciples to talk to them. So he's talking to his believers, to his disciples. The disciple believes, and the disciple is always trying to do the master's business. It is the nature of being a disciple. And that is how we store up treasures for ourselves in heaven, to be about our master's business. And what is it to be about our master's business? Several things which are all sort of interrelated. We love God. Probably number one. We share the good news with other people. We be generous with those who are needy, like Jesus gave his disciples marching orders on a couple of occasions. Heal the sick, feed the hungry, cast out demons, etc., etc. So if we're going to be about our master's business, we're going to heal the sick and feed the hungry. We will spread the good news, and we will love God and love our neighbor. And in doing those things, we are storing up for ourselves treasures in heaven. So with that, I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.